live. Yeah.
To mark the beginning of the event, let's all stand for national anthem. I request everyone to please turn off their cameras.
Thank you all. A very warm welcome to everyone present here, and also to the viewers that have joined us online too. I am Vaibhavi Bhanshali,
I'm Saida Sayed.
and we both take the privilege of hosting our annual event Primus 2021, organized by the Department of Biotechnology, Elphinstone College. It is our pleasure to welcome you all to this wonderful event. Unlike every year, this year's event is being organized online, which is also the new normal in these pandemic times. So we have come back yet another year, combining knowledge with an element of joy. With exciting talks, research presentations from students and research scholars, along with various fun events. Nevertheless, our enthusiasm and efforts remain the same.
So, without any further delay, we would like to call our biotech department coordinator and head of microbiology department, Dr. Nikita Nayak, to put the opening remarks and warmly welcome the delegate.
Ma'am, you are mute.
Am I audible now?
Yes, madam. Yeah.
Thank you, Vaibhavi and Saida. Good morning, all of you. Myself, Dr. Nikita Naik, on behalf of Elphinstone College Department of Biotechnology, welcome you all for the celebration of 2 eventful days of learning and entertainment. It has been a ritual since 2009 where students of Biotechnology Department celebrate their annual festival primers, which always has been an amalgamation of fun and knowledge. It has proved to be a platform to build up the confidence of students to present their research initiatives and also to participate in science based games. Like every year, we invite eminent speakers to inspire students. And this year, too, we have Dr. Anand Kant and Sri Santosh Shegde to do the honors for us. This year, as forced by nature, our society has shifted its function to digital platform. And so, why not this festival of primers? And so we themed it as science and society. This would not have been possible without the unconditional support and trust empowered on us by our principal, Dr. Swati Vawar. I take this privilege to thank our principal, Dr. Swati Vawar, a microbiologist at heart, but connected my soul to Elphinstone College since the last 31 years, though she has taken up the leadership of Elphinstone College since November 2020. We are confident that Madam's dedication and commitment will surely help us to raise our benchmarks and achievements. Due to her busy schedule, she is unable to log in and has conveyed all her best wishes to all the participants and guests. I once again thank you all for your support and participation for making this happen and set the ball rolling for this year's Primers 2021. With this, I request Revati to take over and give an overview of our department and the primers journey of primers so far. Thank you.
I, Revati Dhaifule, welcome you all, students, teachers, and the respected guests. Today, we have gathered to celebrate the most awaited annual festival for Department of Biotechnology. Primers has been a very exciting event to everyone in the department. The inputs by the participants, the enthusiasm of students, the guidance of teachers, as well as the insights by the guest speakers has helped primers to be successfully celebrated since 2009. It gives me immense pleasure to say that Primers has been celebrated since 11 years with the same enthusiasm. A group of zealous students and teachers started the event to honor the love for science. Primers has brought together students from different colleges as well as great achievers in science to share their thoughts over different aspects of scientific temperament with all. Today, we have been able to bring people across wide regions with the help of internet. The situation of pandemic has restricted us from meeting in person but has not stopped us from sharing our thoughts. Primers are the initiators of any new cells in the biological kingdom. Hence, our aim to name this event as primers is to initiate a thought process which will bring about great contributions to our understanding of science. Hence, we believe that science is never a restricted to individual discipline. Rather, it is very interdisciplinary. We have celebrated this event with different aspects about science, be it science without boundaries or histories of science or evolution. With the help of primers, we have brought together people keen about science in different areas together. The discernment about scientific education by Dr. Sugra Chunawala during last year's theme of Science Without Boundaries or perception given by Professor Arunan in 2018 primers with the theme of History of Science has assisted participants of primers to understand science in a better way. On behalf of the team primers, I welcome you all to enjoy the event and take with you better understanding and memories. With this, I hand over to Vaibhavi to continue with the exciting journey of Primers 2021.
Thank you, ma'am, for your kind words. Surely been a very momentous journey for all the students and alumni who have been part of this event. Since the beginning, our department has aimed at making primers an educational event. Given a theme to the event, like Revati ma'am added, we focus on how science plays a crucial role in our daily lives, and we intend to do the same. So let's hear from Shresi and Raj about this year's theme.
When we talk of science, what do you think of? You might be imagining chemicals, organisms, numbers, and derivations. Is science all about that? To truly understand it, just need to look. It is everywhere, and it's all for the society. That is you, me, and us. We have seen the transition from a non-mechanical wheel to high-tech rockets, and who knows what invention will change our near future. Science has contributed greatly to the betterment of our society, and a significant role has been played by the scientists who have been primarily moved by curiosity and the desire to use knowledge for human welfare. It generates solutions for everyday life and encourages us to answer the secrets of the world. In other words, it is one of the most prominent channels of knowledge. It has a distinct role as well as a variety of functions for the benefit of our society, improving learning and increasing the quality of life. Science helps satisfy the natural curiosity with which we are born. But with this also comes the responsibility of curating our priorities. These priorities are subjective to an individual,
and are equally important as the other. While some are ignorant to the commonness, the other's sole purpose is to ease and refine the society. While some look into the exploration of the unknown, the other concentrate on polishing the existing systems.
Without it, the modern world would not be modern at all. And still, we have much more to learn. We may have an image of it based on the curriculum, and all of those images reveal some details of science. But none of them provides a complete picture because science has so many aspects. Societies have changed over time, so has science. And it is nothing but a rational part of society leading to innovation, from infrastructure to transport, social well being to medical. Delivering the essence of above, we have seen how science influences society mostly for advancement, but also it has turned out to be hazardous. For example, at the time of World War II, it gave rise to nuclear weapons, which still has an impact on us. Science that does not serve humanity is a sin. This is why we present this year's theme, Science and Society. For us, the torchbearers of science, it is a great responsibility to serve humankind at our best and help improve it for the betterment. We welcome you all to Primus 2021 and hope you experience an exciting and enriching event. Thank you. Now, I call Saida to take over the mic.
Thank you, Shreyasi and Raj. We now understand the role of science in our society. As Mahatma Gandhi said, science without humanity is a sin. Moving further, we would like to call Professor Mayur Gaikwad to formally introduce our chief guest and speaker.
Thank you, Saida, very much. So just before our meeting started, Dr. Anand was saying that I started my graduation with chemistry, and then I did biology, and then I ended up in physics. So you can understand the gravitas of the person which we are going to hear. We are very fortunate to have Dr. Anand Kant with us. Actually, we have been mailing him since last 3 years, but this year we got hold of him. Currently, Dr. Das is research scientist at New York University in Abu Dhabi campus, and he's involved in curiosity-driven science to understand the inner working of the brain. Presently, he is also involved in developing an ultra-sensitive kit for coronavirus detection. He is an alumnus of Stephen College, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Center for Biomedical Research, and Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, TIFR. He has previously worked at the Department of Applied Physics, Vienna University of Technology, Austria. He has published several scientific papers in international journals of repute in the areas of neurosciences, biophysics, and biological chemistry. He is the winner of Euraxis Science Slam competition organized by the European Commission and served as a reviewer for several international scientific journals, including the Journal of Biological Chemistry, Experimental and Therapeutic Medicine, and Molecular Medicine. Actually, I remember because we were in the audience when he won the Euraxis Science Slam competition. And let me tell you, there is a video online which he submitted for the competition, and that is, if you see that video, you should definitely watch because he has explained the Alzheimer's disease in such a simpler terms that you will enjoy very much. He is a certified counselor and he loves science, writing, and communication. He is genuinely interested in traditional and alternative system of medicine and comparative religion. So without making you wait, I will ask Dr. Das to deliver a talk on how to make a perfect selfie. Yes, you heard it right, how to make a perfect selfie. So over to you, Anand sir.
I'm pleased to be here, and how do I share my screen?
Yeah, so Isha, can you stop presenting so that Anand sir will get the option? Yeah, so Anand sir, you have an option there, present now, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can click that and you can upload your presentation from your device.
Yes, let me see. But I can't get the option of the desktop.
Okay, so you have opened the presentation, sir?
Yeah.
So there is an option like share a window, correct? You can click on the window and the presentation will be one of the options, and you can click on that.
I don't know. Let
Yeah.
me check. I'm sorry
Yeah.
for this confusion, but
It's okay, totally fine, sir. Yeah.
because I have been working on many other platforms, I've never handled this before.
Okay.
Um, so the point is, I have opened the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So my
now can you give the option of the in the windows? There is option of window. Share your window.
that's right. But the point is, when I share that thing, it it's nothing appears. Only my home screen appears.
Okay. So
So
you
you
want
go
to
stepwise. So you go stepwise. On the
Uh-huh.
Zoom platform screen, you would see an icon present now at the lower end. Click on that. Where Isha Paule was presenting, there you could see the screen
Yes, yes,
present
yes,
now. Yeah. So
yes,
click on that.
yes.
You would get a window would open. You would
Mm-hmm.
there you would get another screen, and you click on this. It has share the entire screen,
Okay.
and hopefully your PPT is opened on the desktop. So
Yes.
then that we would get to see that.
That's where the problem is, because when the PPT is open, when I say share, I don't see the PPT, I just see the home screen, and the share click is disabled.
No, you have to open the PPT on your desktop,
It is opened.
and you have to share your entire screen with us. So
I
automatically,
have
what is there?
When you click on share on entire screen,
Mhm.
turn on to some other window and then come back to Google Meet page. There you can again get a blue button share. It will now be able. Disabling option would have gone by now. Is it working?
I have shared it, but I'm not sure if you can see something.
Yes, sir. We can
Yes,
see
sir,
it.
it's coming up.
Okay, great. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, sir.
yes.
So one second. I can just see our principal madam has joined in. So we welcome principal madam for the event, and I, if she can, she would just log in to say a few words. Madam, are you there? Oh, I think. Okay, continue, sir. I can't see her because I was getting her on the. Yes, sir.
Okay,
I may continue.
okay.
Thank you.
I apologize for the initial hiccups, and I'm pleased to be here. It's an honor to be associated with Elphinstone College and use the platform to share my ideas. And thank you, Mayur, for your generous introduction. Today, I'll be going to talk about selfies. Okay, and the idea is that we all have taken selfie at one time or the other. Some of us take it every day. Okay, the I'm not going to talk about technicalities of a selfie. Okay, there's an underlying theme which I'll allude to. And what is the theme I'm going to talk about? So as you know, a selfie is a self-portrait photo. Okay, so when you take a selfie versus somebody taking a photo of yours and tagging you, there's a difference. So when you have a self-portrait, you present your best form. Okay, you project your best physical and emotional state to the outside world. While when you are unawares and somebody takes a photo of yours or tags you in some platform, social media platform, then the way you look is different. Okay, so there are two keywords here. So the keyword is physical and emotional state. But the major question is, do we understand our physical and emotional state? Because unless we understand our physical and emotional state, how are we going to present the best form of it to the outside world? And that is the central theme of my talk, to understand our physical and emotional state. But before I proceed further, I don't want this session to be a monologue. So feel free to interrupt me if you have questions, comments, and I'll be happy to discuss. Let it be a form of discussion, okay, and not a one-way monologue. So let us begin. So this physical and emotional state, I'll try to understand it through the prism of science. Since the audience is someone who, the audience is practicing science and interested in science, so I don't have to impress upon the advantages of having a scientific viewpoint in life, but and then how this vision, or through the prism of science, once you analyze the physical and emotional state, what this has, how this impacts society, what is the bearing of this on society. So basically, a happy society is something we all want, okay, a happy and prosperous society. But if there is a problem at the level of health, okay, or at the level of emotional well-being, then the society will not be happy. And that is where we are doing a big disservice. So the purpose of my talk today is just to make you aware, okay, like what exactly I think is a good physical well-being and a good emotional well-being, strictly from scientific perspective. So basically, you'll see a bunch of buzzwords here. You have cosmology, artificial intelligence, Dunning-Kruger effect, highlight reels, social currency. So these are some of the terms which I'm going to throw today at you. I'm not sure if I'll be able to cover everything, but I'll try my best. And then the basic idea is that we learn something from this, okay? And we learn by interacting with each other. I'm looking forward to the question answer session. So let us begin from the beginning, okay? So how did life evolve? Or how did, one step back, how did the universe come into being? So in the beginning, there was nothing. By nothing, I mean nothing. There was no universe. There was no, universe has no boundary, by the way. There was no universe. There was no time. There was no law. So the current understanding is that universe evolved from nothing. Now that nothing, so I mean, if you look from the physics perspective, what is darkness? Darkness is absence of light. So you can say that darkness is not something, so darkness is not about nothing, it's just absence of photons in the visible range, 400 to 700 nanometers. In the same way, this nothing is actually absence of something, absence of matter. Okay, so that is nothing. Nothing is also something, but it has a specific definition in cosmology. So in the beginning, there was nothing. Okay, around 13.7 billion years ago. It's a huge timeline. And how do we know 13.7? Because we have certain instruments for example, Hubble telescope, by which we can analyze the period before you go back in time. Okay, now because of background radiation, a lot of the radiation which has left its initial, say for example, a star. Okay, a star is emitting light, and that light reaches us after millions of Earth years. Okay, now anything which you observe, a star which you observe today might not be existent today, but it was existing millions of years back, and you got the radiation today, so you see the star. In the same way, we can understand the primordial universe by looking at the radiation which reaches us today. Okay, so as you go back and back and back, you see that there were stars, and suddenly at one point there was nothing. Okay, or there was no stars, nothing, and that we think was the beginning of this universe, and that is around 13.7 billion years ago. So what happened then is there was a Big Bang. Now people think Big Bang was an explosion. Actually, it's not an explosion. Okay, it's just that you had the starting of the universe. We do not know what exactly happened at that time. Now we know some bit of what happened few seconds after the Big Bang. So basically, the universe was created, and the universe is expanding even now, and it's accelerating. And that gave rise to whole galaxies. So just to give you an idea that how many galaxies have we detected so far is around 4 billion. Okay, so there are 4 billion galaxies. Each galaxy has, say for example, 100 billion stars. So that is the level of complexity we are talking about. And in just one galaxy, we have one tiny bit, the Earth. For example, you can understand the context. So you have a notebook, and you make a tiny dot on that notebook. So that tiny dot is our Earth, and the entire Earth, which we think right now is our Earth, is the universe. So we are a very, very tiny, minuscule in this universe. So you have to understand that why I'm impressing on this fact is because we have forgotten that we are nothing but a part of this universe. We are not separated from this universe. We are very much a component of the universe. Okay. Now, why did I tell you the story of the stars? Because the stars are principally made of hydrogen and helium. Okay. But at the center of the stars, the temperature rose so much that fusion reaction happened and a lot of new elements were generated and a lot of energy was released. And that energy is something which we detect. So because of this constant interaction, a lot of new elements were born. Okay. And we are made up of what? We are made up of carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, name it. Each of these elements were actually made in the stars. Okay. And when stars died, after the death of stars, these elements, these main elements of the periodic table, they started interacting in different permutation and combination, and that's where life evolved. Okay. So, and that got me into thinking. So this image is taken from Elephanta caves in Mumbai several years back. And if you think what I feel or what is the current scientific evidence from astrophysics and cosmology is not, we are nothing but stardust. Why do I say so? Because to reiterate, all the elements that we are made of were actually emanated in the stars. Okay. And it is from there that we derive our roots. So we are definitely a part of this cosmos. So we do not have to feel that we are something away from the universe, we are an abnormal case. Our very much existence is there because some star had died and that gives birth to us. Okay. So we are stardust. So we are very much in union with this universe and we are special. Why we are special is because, so this is what exactly what I was talking about. So you have different elements, oxygen, carbon. Each of these elements were made in the stars. Okay. And so if somebody asks you what is your real identity, the physical identity, you have to say that we are nothing but stardust. Okay. But then I made a second comment that we are special. Not we, but any life form is special. And if I give you the timeline, as I said, 13.7 billion years ago, there was nothing. And from that nothing, we don't understand that nothing, but from that nothing, we have something, which is the universe. The universe has no boundary per se, and the universe is accelerating. And we came from the remnants of a death of a star. Okay. Around 4 billion years ago, you see the first signs of primordial life. Or in other words, you have first cell formation happening around 4 billion years ago. And around 200,000 years ago, you have human beings coming into limelight. And around 10,000 years ago, we invented agriculture. And that's where we started settling on the banks of various rivers. And then there was this population growth which happened, and we multiplied and we moved to different parts of the world. Okay. But one interesting understanding of this, which directly links to spirituality, is first of all, we all are connected, and this connection is at the level of genetics. Okay. But all of us at some point of our lives, we always think that we are inferior, we are not born rich, we face so much trauma, I have to take a train every day, and we are basically bugged by different aspects of our mundane existence, and we fail to understand that your life, what you see today, is an outcome because there was an unbroken chain of DNA transfer, starting from, say, first hominid in prairie in Africa till now. Okay. There has been an unbroken chain, and you have to understand this, that you carry the DNA of your ancestors. Had there been one place where the DNA was not transferred in an unbroken manner, you would not have been here. So starting from the first life 4 billion years ago and modern humans, hominids, and then humans, all of us survived all the disasters, okay? Be it earthquake, be it famine, be it anything, any asteroids hitting us, the meteorites hitting us, we have survived it all, okay? And we have successfully passed on the DNA to the next generation. And that is where you have to drive the energy. That our ancestors, starting from first cell till now, okay, in this 4 billion years of transition, have survived it all. So why do we feel dejected in this modern scenario? And I'll come to that. But you have to understand that the basic essence of life is homeostasis, a balance. Okay, if something goes haywire or awry in that balance, you are gone. Okay, you are disrupted. So just to understand homeostasis a little better, let us see this graph. So you have homeostasis. So there is always a range. There is nothing fixed here. It's a population-based range, and this can apply to anything. For this purpose, let us understand the disease aspects. So you have homeostasis, you are healthy. Okay. There are perturbance to homeostasis, and your body tries to compensate it by activating mechanisms that will regain back the homeostasis, and then that's compensation. But what happens when the damage is beyond compensation, and then breakdown starts happening, and then you try to repair it. You repair it through medical intervention, through lifestyle changes, whatever you do, you try to repair it. If it can go back to compensation stage, it can regain homeostasis, you're fine. If it cannot go back to the compensation stage or regain homeostasis, you're permanently disabled, and it can also lead to death. So the central take-home message is that two things. First of all, you are not an isolated beast. You are very much a part of this cosmos. You are made up of this cosmos, number one. Number two is you are extremely special. Why? Because your ancestors have successfully survived every onslaught of nature and passed on the genes. So you are special because your DNA carries the history of the entire existence of life on this planet. And third is that you have to maintain homeostasis. And if anything which puts you off the homeostasis is a disadvantage to your survival. Okay, if you look at this list, say 120 years ago, the leading cause of deaths, a lot of it were because of infectious diseases. We did not have good antibiotics, and a lot of these diseases were infectious in nature. But if you see now, a lot of this disease have moved to lifestyle-related disease. You have a lot of cognitive disorders coming up. You have depression prevalent in the society. You have diabetes, okay? You have hypertension. And the list of barring this pandemic, which is a communicable form, but barring this pandemic, overall, if you see, a pandemic is an abnormal case, but overall, if you see, a lot of our diseases now fall into the category of lifestyle-related diseases. So what happened in this 100 years? That the shift of diseases, there has been a shift in basically the kind of diseases which inflict us. And this is something we have to understand through the prism of science. So one thing I always try to practice myself and others is always go for this evidence-based understanding of life. Okay, do not go by I think, I believe. There is nothing called I think and I believe. In science, what happens is you propose a hypothesis. A hypothesis is your best guess to what might be happening. And that guess is based on previous understanding of things. And then you do perform experiments to either approve of that hypothesis, bring in evidence in support of that hypothesis, or you say that this hypothesis was wrong. Okay, and in either of the case, you have to support it by evidence. And this is where you have to understand that slowly, we are moving out of this. Okay, we are not practicing a life which is based on evidence, but we are practicing a life which is based on irrational thought process. And this is something is a cause of concern. And this is why I'm here to make you understand what is my perspective and take of things. So story time. So this was enough gyan. Now let us begin with some story. Story number one. So on 18th April 1955, something very fascinating happened. Okay, it's a sad as well as fascinating. So the sad aspect is Albert Einstein died on this day, where at Princeton, and his body was taken for post-mortem analysis at Princeton Hospital. After the post-mortem analysis, they gave back the body and it was buried. But something very, very weird happened. A doctor by the name Thomas Harvey, who conducted the postmortem, he basically stole Einstein's brain. This was not known. He hid the brain for several years, of course, preserved it. And then, after several years, he wrote a letter telling that he has the brain and he wants legal permission to do experiments on it. Okay, so this is the actual picture of Einstein's brain. Okay, now why did he do that? Because he wanted to understand the reason for Einstein's genius. I mean, what is so special about his brain? So brain has fascinated us all through the civilization, and we know very little about the brain. And as more and more technical advancements happening, we are beginning to uncover a lot of interesting understanding, inner pinnings about the brain. But just to bring it at the base level, the tiny unit of the brain, a nervous system, is made up of neurons, where flow of information happens. Okay, so it's just like one neuron networking with another. So within a nerve cell, so this is a nerve cell, you have a cell body and you have axon and you have terminus. A cell body, so flow of information happens in one direction from the cell body towards the terminal. It's electrical in nature. So within a neuron, any information transfer is electrical in nature. We call it action potential. But from one neuron to another, it's chemical in nature by dumping in neurotransmitters. So these neurotransmitters are actually the language which a neuron understands. Okay. So if a language is such that it tells the next neuron, hey, pass on the information, then the next neuron will get excited. If it says, hey, stop the flow of information, then the next neuron will be inhibited. Okay. So as I said, within a neuron, it's electrical in nature. Between two neurons, it's chemical in nature. Okay. So this is the holy grail. This is the elephant in the room. Anything which disrupts transfer of information within the nervous system will cause us a range of pathology. Okay, it could be psychiatric disorders, it could be neurological disorders. Either it could result in the death of a neuron so that information cannot pass through, or it will block information in some way. All of these will help basically disrupting the information transfer. So you have to understand that information flow should happen nicely, and it is only then we are sane. Okay. But what do we know about the brain now, and what did we know very early on? Okay. If you see Hippocrates, in the 5th century BC, he wrote something about the brain, which I think is fantastic. He said, from a brain and brain alone arises our pleasures, joy, laughter, jest, sorrows, pain, grief, and tears. So all shades of emotions. Okay, we contribute heart. We say that our heart, when we show love, we show the image of heart, as if the heart is the center of emotion. Partly it's true, but not fully. Our brain is the center of emotion, and all activities or of our well-being, of our existence, of our cognitive process is controlled by the brain. So you have to understand this aspect, that brain. But can the nervous system work in isolation, or does the nervous system work in isolation? I'm sure you in microbiology you must have known something about gut microbiome. So one line of argument is we are nothing but a colony of bacteria, because we have 10 times more bacteria in a body than the number of cells. Okay, and this is fascinating. And what is this bacteria doing? So traditionally we think they might be making some vitamins, some essential peptides, and that's it. But now we know that no, that is not true. You have an entire spectrum of body regulation which is controlled by this microbiome. And I think the next frontier in medical science will have two major components. One is that you have the microbiome and microbiome based therapeutics. So any of you who want to have become an entrepreneur, you want to open a company, I'm giving you an idea. So the idea is that you analyze the microbiome of healthy individuals, you analyze the microbiome of disease based patients. Basically, you have diabetic patient, obese patient, depressed patient. You understand the microbiome, you see what is missing, and then you grow this bacteria culture and you feed them in the form of probiotics. That should take care. And this microbiome based therapy is something which we should elude, because now we have sufficient evidence pouring in from all quarters suggesting that our bacteria might hold key to our understanding. And the second frontier, which I think is gene technology. You have CRISPR-Cas9 technology, you can now edit genes. Although this is at a nascent stage, coming to humans, it has to overcome a lot of non-specific reactions. But nevertheless, that is the next frontier. Now, gene technology is a little complicated, but microbiome is something which you can easily handle. So this is something, if somebody has an entrepreneur bent of mind, this is something you can think about. It's not extremely expensive, but it can change the game altogether. So the second story. So why did I tell you the first story? The first story is to understand that our brain is a fascinating organ, and that is not only controlled in isolation, but also it talks to the microbial environment and controls. Just to give you another aspect of the brain, so this 1.5 kg mass, which is sitting in our skull, is a fantastic organ because of the sheer numbers of neurons it houses. Just to give you an idea, it has something around 80 billion to 100 billion. The entire population of this planet is around 7.5 billion. And you have here 100 billion neurons sitting in that 1.5 kg mass. So what is this 100 billion neurons doing? So if you, just to give you an idea of what 100 billion is, if you count 1 neuron per second, so you will count 10 neurons in 10 seconds, 100 neuron in 100 seconds. In order to count the entire 100 billion neurons, it will take you 3,175 years. So that is the level of complexity, that is housed in our brain. And that gives us advantage, a cognitive advantage. And second thing is that these neurons are connected to one another. One neuron is not talking to only one neuron. It can talk to 10,000 other neurons. And this is where the complexity arises, because it gives rise to complex microcircuits, which then gives rise to different brain regions which control different aspects of functions. Just to illustrate further, if you take one neuron and connect it end to end, from Mumbai you'll go to Delhi. I mean, that's the distance it can encompass. So the thing which is sitting here is really, really fascinating, and let us understand it a bit more. And in order to understand it, let me describe you an experiment which was done in 1971. This was a very disruptive kind of experiment. So I'm also a board member of one of the companies which deal with disruptive technology. So these days, disruptive technology is something which is in vogue, where a certain technology changes the direction of the market totally. For example, online marketing was online way of getting things, Amazon, Flipkart. This was disruptive technology. So this Stanford prison experiment was also a disruptive experiment in psychology, because it was done on humans. It was one of the early experiments which were done on humans actively. Not, you don't observe it passively, but it was done actively. So what was the purpose of this experiment? A scientist at Stanford, Philip Zimbardo, wanted to understand the hierarchy or relationship between a guard and a prisoner, okay? And whether a guard being inherently violent is innate or something which he or she acquires, okay? This is something he wanted to understand. So he got funding for this by the US Navy, and he started this experiment. So a mock prison was built at the basement of Stanford University in US. As you all know, it's a very, very prestigious university. And then proper advertisements were out, and very cognitively sane individuals with no history of violence, no history of drug abuse were picked up. Half of them were made guards and half of them were made prisoners. Drill happened where these guys were arrested, they were given the dress, the guards had the uniform, and prisoners had their prisoner uniform. And the idea was to observe the behavior over time. So this experiment was planned for 2 weeks, but the experiment was halted after 5 days on the sixth day. Why? Because the experiment became really, really violent. Okay. When these guys were put in the context of prison, although at the beginning each one of them knew that they are just part of experiments, they are fellow students in the university, they are no guards, they are no prisoners, they're just enacting it. But then, given in that context, things became so violent, you can't imagine that the guards became extremely brutal. The prisoners started revolting, and it was brutal, and they had to stop the experiment. So, what do we learn from this Stanford prison experiment? What we learn is that your environment, your nurture can tremendously impact the way you behave. It's not that you are a kind, you are a very nice, gentle individual, you will remain gentle for life. If I change your immediate environment, that can hugely impact the way you behave. So you have to be aware of how environment or your immediate surrounding modulates your, cognitive, your behavior, basically. So this is what we learn. So basically our behavior is extremely malleable, and it depends upon how our environment is shaping us. Now let us go through this movie. You might have seen, because this was circulated in social media, but I think it's a very interesting thing. So the idea is here that the participant is told that there will be a matchstick, and the matchstick will be, and you have a burning matchstick which will be touched on the screen, on the skin of the participant, and they will see how well they can tolerate it and how much time they can tolerate it before they say that please take it off. So this experimenter, what he does is he takes the matchstick. The participant can smell the matchstick, knows that a matchstick will touch so it is anticipating a matchstick, but instead of the matchstick, you put an ice, which is diametrically opposite to what a matchstick would do. But the participant actually sees, feels that there was a hot, matchstick touching his or her skin. And this, I think, is fascinating. So basically, we can, based on cues of our immediate environment, or based on manipulating our immediate environment, we can make you believe whatever we think is, we can make you believe anything. Okay, given we can manipulate the environment sufficiently. And this is where we have to be very, very cautious. Okay, that what we think is a conscious choice that we make might not be conscious. And this brings me to the idea of persuasion. So this is this fantastic book written by a psychology professor in Arizona, Rob Cialdini. If you can get a hold of this book, please read it. It's called Persuasion. So the idea is, and this is used by marketing guys. Okay, so for example, if I tell you that I have a menu, okay, and I run a restaurant, I have a menu, and I want to sell a particular dish a lot more than the others. How do I do it? Okay. One quick way to do it, if you write, this is chef special, this is today's special menu, that might not drive the sales so much as compared to if you just write one tag word, which is most popular. The moment you write most popular, what is the manipulation which happens to your brain is you think that this is something which is acceptable by peers. Okay. And that persuades you. So even before you make a choice, I can make you pick on a particular choice just by manipulating the environment. Or for example, you go to a shop and they feed you with, or they give you a cold drink or a chai, okay, before you do any transaction. And then because of the principle of reciprocity, you basically feel obliged that you cannot go out of that shop or a mall without taking anything, because that's the principle of reciprocity. So there are six, we can talk in detail if somebody has questions, but you can understand that there are very refined ways by which we can make people uh, do particular things our way. Okay, and how it's based on the principle of what? Environment manipulation. So if you can manipulate the environment in a particular way, you can guide people to behave in a particular way. And this is a real danger. Why? Because all of us are showing now a herd behavior. A herd behavior means that we are just following trends. Just like I said, you make the a particular menu very popular, most popular, and you think that your peers are doing it, so you should also do it. It's acceptable, and that is where the problem arises. And this is why I'm trying to make you understand that being conscious of our physical reality and being conscious of our emotional reality and how it is vulnerable and how easily it can be manipulated is something we have to be conscious if we want to exit this cycle of being exploited. And this is something we have to and all of these stories which I'm telling you, I'm pitching you, is to make you understand that we are not very sane individuals when it comes to making choices, when it comes to behavior, and we can easily be manipulated. Now, two concepts I'll talk. One is the reward pathway and one is the stress pathway. So just think about it. You feel happy. Why? You feel happy because you achieved something. So you have gained something. That is a gain in status, in money, in value. You eat good food, have a good, meaningful relationship with somebody. All of these impacts certain areas of your brain to release, pleasure molecules. There are quite a few of them. One of the central is dopamine. You also have serotonin. So all of these are released or dumped in particular areas of the brain, and that gives you a sense of reward, a happiness, be it a monetary gain, be it good food, be it anything. Okay, so that's the reward pathway, and this pathway is something we have to be very cautious about. Why? Because addiction is primarily mother-child relationship involves this pathway. The feeling of love involves this pathway. The feeling of happiness involves this pathway. But the feeling of addiction, this compulsion to do things which you know is wrong, but still can't hold yourself back, is also because of this reward pathway. And the second is the stress response pathway, because both of these, are working simultaneously or quasi-simultaneously in us. So you have the reward pathway, and the other side is the stress pathway or stress response pathway. So what is the stress response pathway? You have the hypothalamus, pituitary gland, and adrenal gland axis. So basically what happens is when you encounter a stressor, for animals, the stressors are mostly physical stressor. So you have a deer which is chased by a lion or a tiger, that's a physical stressor. So what happens is when a lion or a tiger is chasing a deer, the deer runs for life, okay? And this stress response pathway is activated. It starts from the hypothalamus and it activates something which is sitting on top of a kidney called the adrenal gland, which releases a lot of stress hormones, okay? Or cortisol, for example. And this stress hormones primes you to do something. Now let us understand this logically. So when a tiger is chasing you, what is one thing that you need at that time? You need to be super alert, okay? You need tons of packets of energy. If you don't have energy, how will you run, okay? You need your heart to pump blood very fast, okay? So you need to improve your vascular tone, you need to have more energy, you need to be alert when you're running for life, when you're facing a stressor. Of course, this stressor is a very severe one, but then a stressor is a stressor, and all stressors activates this pathway. What are the things we don't need? We don't need to reproduce when we are facing a stressor. We don't need slow fat digestion or whatever. So we don't need growth at that time. We don't need muscles being built at that time. So all the long-term maintenance program of our body is shut down, and all the short-term survival schemes are turned on. Okay, and I'll come to this. So this is the stress response pathway, and this is where fundamentally I believe is the root cause of most of the evils in society. One is the reward pathway, and one is the stress response pathway. Before I go that, let me throw out three different concepts. One is called artificial stupidity, second is Dunning-Kruger effect, and third is artificial intelligence. Now, these are three different domains, and let me try to cover these up. So first is artificial stupidity. Now, this is something you might not have heard. You might have heard of artificial intelligence. You might not have heard of artificial stupidity. So this artificial stupidity is something which is used by the tech giants in their boardroom meetings, but not for people on street. Okay, so basically, we are being made stupid. We are being made stupid by manipulating these pathways: reward pathway and stress response pathway. And the question is how? Let us take, for example, the social media. Okay, there is something called highlight reel. What does it mean is that you project your best self, that the selfie which I was talking about, you project it to the world. And the moment you project it to the world, it's like a transaction. Okay, you are selling something. Okay, when you go for a job, you are selling your talent. When you are in a market shopkeeper, you are selling your product. Okay, you are selling something, and you get a value in return. In terms of a job, you get a salary. When you are selling in a mall, then you get in terms of money. Okay, you book some profit, or you're trading in a stock exchange, you book some profit. So that is activating a reward pathway. Okay, and this is exactly what is done by the social media. So what it does is, instead of giving you money, it basically gives you a social currency. A social currency is a like or a comment. So you have to understand that if I am a guy and I have to start a company, I have to sell the product to people. I have to create a need for that product, number one. And then I have to make the product sustainable so that I continue to generate revenue time and again. And this is exactly what happens by the social media giant. They are manipulating a behavior. For example, here social currency. So you feel extremely happy. You post something, you feel extremely happy because somebody has liked your message or your photograph, or somebody has commented, and you count on that. You have this compulsion that you go and want to see it. Why? Because instead of that dopamine, which was supposed not to be hyper activated, you should get your reward pathway getting activated in certain bouts on a normal physiological scale. Now you're going on an overdrive. And because of that overdrive, your circuit is getting damaged in some way. So in order to get that same thrill, you now require a lot more stimulus. And this is exactly what happens in case of addiction. Alcohol, for example. You take in alcohol, you get addicted, you get dopamine release, you feel happy. But then once you get into the addictive phase, the very circuit which were making you happy now got damaged. And once it got damaged, now you need a stronger drive to feel the same, sense of euphoria. And this is the principle which is being observed by the social media giants. I am not telling social media is bad. I'm just telling that do not fall a prey to this addiction. We, all of us, some way or the other, when you wake up and the first thing you do is to check your social media profile, you are addicted. Mark my word, you are addicted. And you are addicted because you like that, constant bombarding of this dopamine. And if you see what happens in the long run is these circuits will slowly damage, and you will have lots of behavioral issues. The way you respond, you instead of being connected, you become disconnected with reality. You become disconnected with friends. You suffer from anxiety. You suffer from depression. You suffer from stress. So starting from a euphoric model, you entered into a stress model. Now, stress can also be a market, and this is exactly what media houses are doing. So if you portray a very nice, positive news, then people will not pay too much attention because that is not threatening news. Moment your survival is, start paying, and that is what is the stress pathway which is being activated. So they are throwing artificially, they are generating reward which does not exist, but you are under the impression that people are liking your profile, you are having a social status and you are getting the social currency. um, um, you book a profit, and that booking of profit is in terms of social currency of like and comments, and that is overdriving your reward pathway and making you addicted. And you have the stress response pathway, which is also used as a threat. So there are certain threats which are being, for example, a pandemic. Okay, they are constantly bombarding you with news, and that is making you get glued to that screen for longer. So they are making money at your expense of how you behave by changing the environment. So that is called artificial stupidity. Artificially, we are being made stupid, and we have to keep a check on that. The second thing is Dunning-Kruger effect. This is something we all have experienced. To some extent, we might not be aware of the term. Some of you may know this, that Dunning-Kruger effect means that it's a cognitive bias. Cognitive bias in the sense that you think that you are capable of doing something when you are actually not. And this started because there was this guy who went to rob a bank, and he applied lemon on his face, and he had this idea that if you apply lemon on the face, a CCTV camera will not capture you. And he went without makeup or without covering his face. He went and robbed the bank and stood in front of the CCTV camera, projecting himself as if he's invisible, he cannot be caught. And then in the next go, he went to another bank, robbed it, and then police could easily track him and arrest him. So this idea that you are capable of doing something which you are not is Dunning-Kruger effect. And a lot of the nonsense which you see around you, social media, people are so convinced of their ideas. People favoring a political party or a particular thought process or a particular religion idea. They are so convinced, and this could also, malleable in that sense that there is a way of reform, but you can also have gundas in science where they propose a certain idea which actually does not exist, but they build an entire empire on it. So this Dunning-Kruger effect, you have to be very, very cautious. People who are convinced of particular idea, but not based on evidence, but based on their whims and fancies, based on what they think and believe they are capable of, or their ideology is something which is sacrosanct and cannot be destroyed, you have to leave those persons. Do not engage in any kind of futile argument with those people, because this is a part of another artificial stupidity. That there are a lot of these Dunning-Kruger cases who will come and they are convinced about a particular idea, they will throw it to you, and that precipitates a reaction in you, and your blood boils, and you give a response, and there's counter response, counter response. None of these debates change anybody's mind, but you're just wasting your time, and you're wasting your reward pathway and stress response pathway. And third is artificial intelligence. This is something in my view, artificial intelligence is something which has more detrimental effects than positive effects. And if it is uncontrolled, and most likely it will get uncontrolled after some time. Okay. For example, there are machines, there are programs now. So artificial intelligence is basically a computer modality by which you can make a machine much more intelligent, or human-like intelligence, or superhuman-like intelligence, where they can derive decisions out of their own. Okay, and this could involve machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, etc. I'm not going in detail of that, but then artificial intelligence, something which you should right now is the time to think and see how we deal with it, because we think that we are at the pinnacle of intelligence, and this is where we have to step back and be incongruent with the universe. Where I started, that our physical self is, we are stardust, so we are very much part of this universe, and our existence is not at the peak. We are just a part of the evolution. We are evolving, all other organisms are evolving, the old bacteria, the archaebacteria is also evolving. Okay, it's not that we have come from bacteria. Of course, we are an offshoot. There has been a branching there, but a bacteria, our forefathers also exist even now from where we came, based on the pressure, the selection pressure which they absorbed. But coming back to artificial intelligence, so if you have a scale where you can measure intelligence, this is chicken, this is humans. But the problem is, we have certain level of intelligence, but our computational capability is limited. Okay, but if this intelligence is clubbed, for example, you can link one computer with 20 million computers at a given time. So just think about the level of computation, and if you are able to generate some level of intelligence, which we have now, we have made programs where a computer can defeat you in any game, okay, any video game. They are so intelligent. Just show them the rules and they win it over you. But this artificial intelligence can go infinitum. I mean, we do not know at what level artificial intelligence will stop, because there's no stopping. At one point, because humans have been tremendously stupid in detecting threats or what could be threatful. Okay, and this is why a lot of the things which we thought has no threat, it's benign, it's इससे कुछ नहीं होगा, ये ऐसे ही है, हम लोग handle कर लेंगे, adopt कर लेंगे. No. And you see the social media itself, the way it has transformed our society, it has screwed us all in some way or the other. And they are minting money based on manipulating our reward circuit and our stress response circuit. So a little bit more about the stress response pathway and how do we deal with it. So as I told you, that you have a fight and flight response. So the interesting thing about a deer is, whenever a tiger or a leopard is gone, a deer is back to normal. Why? Because it can turn off the stress response pathway. This pathway which I was talking about, it can switch it off. But in humans, apart from physical stressor, you also have psychological stressor. 10 saal pehle you had a breakup, and that can affect you even now. Or somebody told you something and it houses inside you, and that thought process can activate your stress response. So we humans are disadvantaged. We have a large cortex, but then the disadvantage we face is we pay a price for that. And the price we pay is we are very poor in regulating the stress response pathway. Very few of us are good at it, but most of us fail miserably. And this is where the problem arises. And then, as I said, whenever you are under an impact of a stress, be it a physical stress, be it a psychosomatic stress, psychological stress, what are the things you need? You need increased cardiovascular tone, you need a blood pressure elevation, you need more energy, your breathing rate will go up, your glucose metabolism will go up, etc. All the long-term functions of your body, for example, your growth, your appetite, you don't want to eat when you are under a stress. I mean, you are being chased by a tiger. So all the long-term responses of the body will be halted. Now just take a step back and let us be conscious of the reality. India is the diabetes capital of the world, okay? Or at least second in terms of numbers. Now let us understand why. Now just think it in this way. Because of a stressor, you needed glucose. So your body is hardwired to make glucose. Now what if you forget to, or you cannot turn off the circuit? If you cannot turn off the circuit, more and more glucose will be available in your body. More and more sugar metabolism will be perturbed, and that will lead to diabetes. Think about it. A simple benign thing. a stress response pathway not being able to mount itself and turn off at the right time will lead to enhanced glucose for a sustained period of time and then diabetes. Now, take the other example. When you are stressed, your cardiovascular tone will go up. When your cardiovascular tone goes up, then what happens is you start, you have high increased blood pressure. That is required because you want to escape a stressor. Okay, it prepares you to face it. Now take the flip side of it. You cannot turn off the stress response pathway. You have increased level of cortisol, which is overdriving your cardiovascular tone. And what is the result? Hypertension. And what is the result of that? You have stroke, you have all kinds of heart disease, you have all kinds of threatening disease. So just think about it. A perspective understanding of what a reward pathway is and what a stress pathway is, and what if we cannot turn it off, what can it do to you? And this is the precise reason why in this present era, we have so many lifestyle related disease, and the lifestyle related disease are the frontiers of tomorrow. They are something which is going to pull us down. And that is something which the pharmaceutical industries will mint money on. And that is something where these .com companies will mint money, because they are banking. They want you to be stressed. They want you to be addicted. Okay, because in that way, your pharmaceutical industry will take care of the pharmaceutics part, and you are constantly engaged with these companies without knowing it consciously, and then you're gone. So I'll end with a last example of how to deal with this stressor. So let us take an example of an experiment which, so rats, even humans, if you are under prolonged stress, you can develop ulcers. Okay, so let us understand that ulcer formation is a readout for stress. Okay, now you have a rat and you subject that rat to electric shock. Okay, that is a stressor for the rat. So the rat is alone in a cage and you give it a shock, and over a period of time, it develops ulcers, suggesting that the rat is showing a dysregulated stress response or maladaptive stress response. Now, what happens if you allow this rat to go and beat up another rat? So basically, if this rat can go and interact and beat up another rat, while this is dominant rat, the other is the non-dominant rat, it can vent out. And that is where, if it can vent out, this is where you have a risk of ulcers going down. So you can take care of your stressor if you can vent it out. Number two, if this rat, the stress rat, is given a wooden bar which it can bite, basically developing a new hobby will reduce ulcers. Okay. Now, suppose just before giving the stress, which is electric shock, you give a buzzer, you press a buzzer, a warning sign, and say 20 seconds after this, the rat will get a shock. So if there is a warning sign, okay, or if there is a predictable nature, okay, of what things are, we get berserk when things are unpredictable, but if there's a predictable nature, if there's a warning sign, then you lose the risk of, so you don't develop ulcers. So basically the predictive nature is very important. The fourth point is, suppose you have a lever which the rat can press, and it gives a pseudo feeling that if you press the lever, you can escape the shock. In that case also, you don't develop ulcer. So what does it mean is that if you have control over a scenario, okay, some way you can develop a control over your, helplessness gives rise to stress. If you can control your helplessness, control your situation, then you can take care of the stresses. And the last is this cognitive. So something which your friends, the interaction, the social interaction, that takes care of your stressor. So you have to understand that a lot of us, a lot of humanity these days are falling prey, for example, pornography. What it does is it basically over drives your reward pathway, and there are packets of serotonin, dopamine being released, and that is where you get addicted to that overdrive, and then eventually over a period of time you become sick and sicker and sicker. Same way in social media. Okay, you pick up, you get addicted to it, and then you, by engaging in social currency, you think that you have gained something, you have a short-term sense of fulfillment, but you are just a lab rat being exploited in hands. So just to put things in perspective, stress is inevitable, but we have to cope. And this coping mechanism is something which I talked about, that you have to develop modalities. First of all, be conscious of what is something in your immediate environment that is manipulating you. Because the moment you know this, you are aware of it, you can take care of it. Okay, for example, in Mumbai local, you go for the first time, you in your life, and you go crazy looking at the crowd, but then eventually over a period of time you get used to it. Okay, so you get adapt to it. Okay, in the same way, unless we are conscious of the trap of how we are being manipulated, using scientific principles, using scientific understanding of our brain, we will not come out of it. So the first step is to be conscious, and the moment we become conscious of who we are, okay, for example, that we are stardust, that we are a part of nature, means that if we destroy one aspect of the nature, indirectly we are destroying us. So we have to understand this aspect of it, and we have to be aware of this, that we cannot live in isolation, because we are very much a part of this nature, we are very much part of stardust. And second is the emotional state, how we are being manipulated by the immediate environment, and it's so easy, stupendously easy to manipulate us. And at this point, we have to understand and take an emotional decision by being self-aware and taking an evidence-based approach. First of all, be aware, be conscious, and see make a list of things in your life which you think are places where you are being manipulated. Are you over consuming news? Are you over consuming social media? Are you being in isolation? Are you having negative thoughts? Each of this has a scientific basis. Understand the root cause and then correct it. And then thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Anand. It was a wonderful talk. So I will ask. So we will wait for some questions in the chat first, in the meet, and then we will ask Nishmita to spell out some questions which are people asking on our live chat. So if anyone has any question in the meet, they can raise their hand and then we can ask. Yes, Vaibhavi?
Sir, I had, so your talk was really amazing. So you talked about how stress leads to cardiovascular diseases.
Yes.
So how does that brain complication lead to heart complications? Like
so
that? Yeah.
Right. So the point is, this is a very, it's a fantastic question. So the question here is that so as I said, a stress response pathway is just not a response of the brain. Though it starts with the brain, it starts with hypothalamus, then it boils down to the adrenal gland. So basically you have this HPA axis, hypothalamus pituitary adrenal gland axis, and there is a constant feedback. Okay. So what happens is, what do you think is spiritualism all about? So the entire crux of spiritualism is to be immune to what are the changes in your environment and be in consonance or resonance with oneself. And this is exactly what modern science is also telling us. So the idea is that once you perceive a stressor, it's a natural response for your body to go overdrive. Okay. If you do it unconsciously, most likely you will be stressed. Why? Because your hypothalamus will see a stressor and it will mount a response, and in the end you have cortisol, which is activating a bunch of other things. But what if consciously you decide, hey, look, this is not a stressor. Is it a stressor? Let us understand it. So the moment you make a conscious decision, then the trigger from the top down will stop. And then you will be able to adapt to a stress much in a much more proactive way, rather than being just a guinea pig or a lab rat. So this is where you have to consciously understand. For example, today you do a cross check to yourself. Are you addicted to social media? And if the answer is yes, then can you do something about it? And this is where the moment you take a conscious decision, your stress response pathway will be regulated, or your reward pathway will be regulated. But this is something we cannot do if we are not conscious of it. So either you take help of a peer, and if you can't do it yourself, you are already a victim and too deep down, and you cannot take care of it. Take help. But if you can do it yourself, do it, because then the top-down trigger is halted. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
So Anand, I would like to ask you a question, which is a two-part question. So first part is like you mentioned about spiritualism. So what exactly you mean by that? Means, and the second part question is, see, as an part of an education institute, how an education institute can help reducing the stress in the educational faculty of students. Like one of the way, are you suggesting that can we give some pulses of stress, something like that, and some ways of like you said, you have to be conscious enough. So conscious is again a very interesting thing, because I was not conscious about gulmohar tree till someone asked me about look and see the flowers of gulmohar tree. So now I go on the road and see flowers now immediately. So how to do this, how to reduce that, and how to bring consciousness into the, let's say, in student, into the undergraduate course, something like that. Yeah.
Right. This is a very, very interesting question. Let me answer the second part first. So the idea is how to consciously decide on basically how to regulate your stress, or whether at all stress is good or bad. So a couple of years ago, I gave a talk in Mysore University, and the topic was very different. It's called The Joy of Stress. So there I talked about the positive aspects of stress. You have to understand that stress in a short term is beautiful. If you're stressed before an exam, it increases your immune response, it increases your attention, it's fine. Short-term stress is okay. But the problem arises when you have a long-term continuous stress. And how do we deal with it? So for this is exactly what I encourage you all to read a little bit more about how things work. For example, let me give you an example, how to be conscious, okay? You are going on a road, an isolated road, for example, and then somebody collapses on the road. And you are a single person out there behind that person. You immediately go and attend that person, call an ambulance, and take him or her to the hospital. Why? Because otherwise you will be having a guilt feeling of not doing anything for that person. Okay, so you are helping because you don't want to be feeling guilty. Now suppose instead of you alone, you have say 15 people there. In that way, your response will be different. Why? Because in that case, your guilt will be shared. जैसे लोग बोलते हैं ना कि अरे सभी करते हैं. And this sharing of guilt is something you have to understand. That सभी करते हैं, तो मैं भी करूं, ये justified है, or it's healthy. This is something where we have to draw a line and consciously decide why sabhi karte hain is justified for you, because you are sharing the guilt now. Earlier, 100% of the guilt was on you because you were the only person on that road. But now there are 200 people, and if others don't help, you don't help, the guilt is shared by all. So this is a subconscious decision. So in terms of students, I think a lot of the things you have to tell students that take a rational approach towards things. So most of us, we want things to be served on a platter. Mayur sir ne bola ki ye cheez padhna hai, hum log padh lenge, and we'll pass the exam. No. So you have to go into a rational approach of really understanding that why this is important for me. If it does not interest you, don't do it. Don't do it. You are wasting your time. Okay. But once you start getting into the nitty-gritties of it, you will realize that every damn thing on this universe is interesting. Everything. Be it stock market, you can apply the principle of statistics in stock market and you can make a lot of money. So you have to understand that a conscious approach, a rational approach, an evidence-based approach in your everyday life can do wonders. For students, if you are stressed, first of all, hold back and see what is stressing you. Is it a construct of your immediate environment that is stressing you out? Be aware of it. And once you're conscious, it will no longer stress you. Or is it your own making? And in both the cases, you can take care of it. And I told you about the ways by which you can take care. And secondly, spiritualism. So what is the fundamental principle of spiritualism is you are in union with the rest of the world. That is the fundamental principle. So since you are dear to yourself, anything else which is connected to you is also dear to you. So you don't want to harm anybody, you want to spread love, you don't want to hate anybody, because each and everything is part of you. So that's spiritualism. And this is exactly what I talked about when we say we are stardust, or we are connected to each other through genome. So you have to understand that all of us are part of the same family. We all are human beings. We all have to leave this negative feeling with against each other, and cultivate ourselves in a way to be put ourselves in the right perspective, that hey, we are not superior, we are just part of this chain, and we have to be in harmony with this chain, and we have to be in harmony with each other and also with the other species. The moment you get it, that is true spiritualism, understanding your true position with respect to the rest of the world.
Yes, so we will take one more question from the the thing. Then we will ask Nishmita to get us some live stream questions. Yes, Nikita ma'am wants to ask something.
Hello, sir. Your talk was really mesmerizing, and thank you for spending time and really enlightening on stress, and which is the need of the hour for our students. Now, being a microbiologist, as you said, that microbiome and probiotics are proving to be useful for reducing stress. Is there evidence that how long it would take to make probiotics effective in reducing stress?
Okay, so believe me, it's just not stress, but a lot of diseases. For example, obesity is something which I think there is evidence now that obesity, even people are even at Caltech, for example, they're even treating autism with bacteria. So there is a company in US called Viome, started by an Indian, which is making a lot of money by doing this. So the idea is you take the fecal matter, do a profiling of the bacteria which is there, and then see which is missing and get back. So one, you have to understand that a probiotic has to be taken in, first of all, the culture should be a true culture. I mean, there are a lot of fake things which are happening around. You think it's probiotic, it's not effective. A lot of probiotic needs a 4-degree storage in the fridge. A lot of it is okay even at room temperature. So second thing is that in order to so we have not reached to the stage where we can, it's not like can lower blood pressure. It's not like that. Okay, it's still suggest, at least in animal models. Human studies are also being done that it takes at least 5 to 6 months before you can see the real effect, because this commensalism, this symbiotic kind of relationship with the new microbiome, it takes time. Okay, you build your diseases by accumulating wrong things over a period of time. You can get rid of them also over a period of time. So it's not like a quick fix that you do it today and tomorrow you are done. You have to take for a sustained period of time, and you have to make a conducive environment so that that microbiome is there. For example, as I said, if you are taking probiotic, but you are continuously not creating the perfect biochemistry. For example, you are not taking the right kind of food, or you are continuously over abusing your system, then it will nullify. So it will be a combination of effect. But in my view, keep a watch. But I think next 10 years, this microbiome is going to be a big thing. And if somebody has in India, if somebody wants to have a startup, I think this is the right way to go. I mean, just make different cultures, isolate them, have different cultures, and enrich them and supply. Because a lot of the microbiome in India is just lactobacillus and some form of it, which might not be sufficient. I'm talking about specific bacterial strains which are associated with specific diseases. So if you can supply that over a sustained period of time, and since it's a good marketing thing, because you are supplying it for a period of time, so you can sell more of your product. It's just not like a one tablet go, but you have to take for a period of time. But yes, there are company, you look at Viome, Viome, it's a company in US, and they are doing fantastic work.
Yeah, that's related to stress, reducing stress. I mean to say,
Yes, absolutely.
oh,
Yes, you can,
okay, sure.
yes, you can. So basically, there are three ways by which it can alter stress by, um, or brain function rather, by basically you have endocrine cells inside near your gut. It stimulates that, which so you even have neurotransmitters in your platelets. So your serotonin, dopamine are also present in the platelets. So you have to understand it's just not the brain, but a lot of things happens inside your gut as well. So you have vagus nerve stimulation, you have immune system being regulated, and you also have endocrine cells being activated by this microbiome. So there are 3 and 4 multi-pronged ways by which this microbiome can basically alter your brain function.
Interesting, sir. Thank you. Thank you. I'll check out.
Yeah. So I guess we have 2 more questions here, but before that, we will. Can anybody like Nishmita? Can you tell what are the stream? What are the questions in the chat, so we can take those questions and then we can come back to each.
Also with some question, if you
Yes.
can take it up.
Yes. So we can take some 2 questions from the chat, and then we can come back to Ishita and Agwade madam, and then we can yeah. So Nishmita, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So can you give some questions which are people are asking furiously on chat on our YouTube live stream?
Yes, sir. So the first question is, what are the reasons for stress pathway not getting switched off at the right time?
Oh, okay. So you blame it on our enlarged cortex, you know. So as I said, in case of a tiger being chasing a deer, for an animal, it's an existential threat. It's a threat on life. And the moment the tiger is gone, you can see that animal grazing, the physical stressor is gone, and the animal does not think about it. In case of us humans, the latest addition to our brain, the neocortex, we are paying the price for that. So as a result of a more cognitive brain, we overthink. Okay, and most of our stressor is not strictly in terms of physical in nature. In fact, most of human stressors are psychological in nature, your own thought process. Okay, and we humans are terrible in that. See, you have to understand that we are not programmed. We are not designed to have social media. We are not designed for online things. This is too many things happening in a very short time scale. So you have to understand that evolution is a very slow process. There are mutations, there are epigenetic changes which happen, and it's the scale is very slow in when there is a pressure, okay, selection pressure. But here you have too many things squeezed in. For example, in past 10-15 years, the entire paradigm shift has happened. Okay, be it in terms of I told you the social currency, the constant compensation you get when you post a picture. You get comments, oh wow, what beautiful, this, that. So all of these so we are not designed for that. So our system is not designed for overdrive of a reward pathway. Our system is not designed for continuous negative stressor. So although you might have heard that, so today the stock market crashed, okay, by 800 points when I saw last in the morning. So that can be a stressor. Now this can last for a month from now. People will think, "Arey, mera paisa doob gaya." So this continuous thought process, which you cannot, if you are not conscious of it, you cannot switch it off. So first thing is, it is our own making. We humans are disadvantaged because of the enlarged cortex. We are much more vulnerable to psychological stress. And this is where we are disadvantaged because there are too many things happening in very short time scale, and it looks impossible to adapt to it because they have been designed not to get adapted. They want us to be addicted. They want us to be stressed because that is where they make money.
Yes, on the same lines, Kagwari madam is also asking the same question. So she's asking, sir, does one's mindset have a great role in dealing with stress?
Yes, absolutely. Because so if you know, so how do different different religions have thought about it? For example, if you just think of Hinduism, They take so you have to these are different levels. Okay, let us understand one aspect. Okay, you are a student and you want to do well in your exam, so you go before the deity. Suppose in case you are a Hindu, you go before a deity and you pray. You pray that God, give me, please help me secure 80% marks, and I will give you this much laddu. Okay, this much prasad. So that is you are engaging in a barter system where you want some favor and you want to give something in return. Maybe it's a mark of respect or whatever. But then you think that subconsciously you are indulging in bribery. And this is why in our society, corruption is not a big deal. Why? Because sociologically, we have adopted it in our lives. From early childhood, we have seen us offering something, something more than what we can do, or we'll go walk barefoot. So all of these, in some way or the other, is engaging in a barter system where we are providing um, basically concept of bribery. So how we think about our life is extremely important. For example, if I am your boss and I shout you down, I am bad towards you, you will be stressed. It's inevitable, you'll be stressed. Now take one moment back and let us rewire our thought process and think, hey, look, he is shouting because he is under stress. He is taking me, or he or she is taking me as an outlet to the stress. He is a fellow human being. Let me be his outlet. So, in fact, he is not making me suffer, he is himself suffering. And I am doing a favor to him by giving a patient hearing to his shouts. This does not mean you get exploited. You have to take care of your ideas, your self-worth. But then if you think, for example, you are a psychiatrist and a lunatic patient comes to you and that person is abusing you left, right, and center, you being a doctor knows that that person is sick, that person needs medical help, and you do not give an emotional response to his abuses. In the same way, just by thinking that he's a part and parcel of your existence, he is connected to you and he's sick and you are helping him, you no longer respond to his shouting or abuses the way you used to do previously. Okay, so just by changing your thought process, you can deal with your circumstances. Another thing very important is if you look at Mahabharata, you will see that so there is something called good, intelligently good, bad, and intelligently bad. Okay, so all of us, most of us, fall to this category of good. Okay, and we expect that since we are good things should happen to us. No, Pandavas were good, but you have to be intelligent good. Kauravas were intelligently bad. What does it mean is they will manipulate you and use you. Being good means what? Giving yourself to their manipulation. Being intelligently good means realizing it and taking care of it. And this is exactly what Krishna did. So Krishna is a perfect example of being intelligently good. You are good, but then you can take not give yourself in the hands of the intelligently bad people. So unfortunately, our intelligently bad, they can use you, they can manipulate you, and most of the good people fall in the category of only good. They are not intelligently good, and this is where why we are suffering. And this is why we say, oh, bad things are happening to good people. It's not your past karma that is driving you, it is your own doing. You have to lift yourself from good to intelligent good category, and then you can take care of your enemies very easily, or whatever your threats.
Yeah, so we will have, thank you very much. So we will have two more questions, one from internet. So Nishmita, can you give one more question and then we can have Ishita's question and then we can end. And other question we can mail you, Anand, so you can respond on that, correct? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So,
Mayur, I think Deepa ma'am is with some question. Deepa madam?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Yeah.
Uh, Sir, now we all are aware of the gut-brain talk that is happening. So,
Mhm.
and we know, as you mentioned, that there are a lot of lifestyle diseases as well. So,
Yeah.
the in thing is, we alter our gut microbiome over a period of time. So, sir, how
Yeah.
does this exactly work? Of course, with the intake of probiotics and everything, but isn't it a very long process
Yes.
wherein we have a okay, wherein we have only a healthy microbiome to take care of the gut and do away with the bad bacteria in our gut.
Yes. So the point is you will always have bad guys inside you, but we Indians are terrible when it comes to antibiotics. Okay. So
Hmm.
the major problem which we face in today's society is anything happens to you, you go and take a Norflux TZ. Your stomach has conked. You just go and take a Norflux TZ, which is antibiotics. You don't complete the dose. You don't. And first of all, there is indiscriminate use of antibiotics, which is a disaster because you are giving rise to a lot of antibiotic resistance bacteria. And second is you do not complete the dose. So basically, you do not take it in a proper way. And incomplete doses is another disaster. So your microbiome is tremendously altered if you, first of all, if of course, stress can alter your microbiome, it can kill. Second thing is your uh, antibiotics usage can destroy your microbiome. And third is the kind of food you eat. Okay, for example, there are a lot of prebiotic food. Okay, a lot of them. You can have onion, garlic, all of lot of fruits, for example. A lot of these are loaded with some form of organism, but then you are moving away from that. So basically, you are assaulting it, but you are not replenishing it. And as I said, this microbiome takes a long time to get established, and then but it can be easily destroyed. You can take 1 month of strong antibiotics, and you screw half of your microbiome. So this is where we have to understand that your gut is a very very important thing. Why do we call it gut feeling? Because your gut also have neurons. Okay, and you can think of your gut being the second brain, and this is something is the next frontier in neuroscience. Your gut controlling different aspects of your brain function. So you have to understand that the control is at the primary level at the brain, but also there is a control at the gut level. And if we do not have a healthy, we have a leaky gut, you have all kinds of problems. In that case, what happens is your bacteria balance is disrupted, and this, if it's sustained for a long period of time, does damage. So what I have to tell you is you have to realize, make a list of all the probiotic food and at least have one of them every day. Okay, or as I told you, the probiotic in the market is not very efficient because uh, if you want to take a probiotic, just eat curd or yogurt. Okay, that should be good enough. You don't have to take a probiotic tablet. But what I am alluding to is something which the field is not doing. And what I'm alluding to you is, for example, there is a certain microbe in the soil. Okay, so if you are stressed, let me give you one example. If you're stressed, then just go and play with the soil, the garden soil, and that this bacteria will help you immensely. Okay, in the same way, you have to understand that you have to rehabilitate your gut, make it less leaky, such that you return back to your normal gut. I mean, there is debate now that another point of this debate is the cesarean versus normal delivery. So it is believed now that a child who is born out of cesarean is deprived of a lot of microbiome. Okay, so there are some practitioners in the US. What they do is whatever is the fluid at the time of delivery, they just apply it on the skin of the child. Okay, they just don't bathe the child immediately. Why? Because they think that microbiome which was deprived because of cesarean delivery, at least through the vaginal canal, these whatever the child would have got is something they apply artificially, and they have seen differences. So this is another line of treatment. There is fecal transplant. People take bacteria from and grow them and then give it back. Okay, so a lot of these treatments are being considered now, but the central take home is it takes very easy to destroy the microbiome, and it takes quite a while to rebuild it. If you are not conscious of what is destroying it, then you will never be able to build it, even if you get the right kind of probiotics. So in my view, you have to take a holistic approach rather than a reductionist approach when you're dealing with gut health, basically.
Yes, thank you, Anand. So there are
Thank you,
lots
sir.
and lots of questions which are coming in on our live stream. So we will get back to you. We will give you this. We will send you through the email, and we expect that if you have some time, you can answer them.
Sure.
Right now, we are shooting off our time. So we'll call Anshika to give a vote of thanks. Anshika, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Anshika Pegwar, and I am here to outstretch our sincere appreciation to our honorable speaker, Dr. Anand, on behalf of Department of Biotechnology, Elphinstone College. Thank you, sir, for taking time out of your busy schedule and enlightening the crowd with your opinions and wise talks. Today's webinar gave us deep insights into the topic, how to take a perfect selfie. And as sir said, when we take a selfie, we project ourselves to the world. But the real question is, who are we? Are we really the one we think we are? Once we analyze our physical and emotional state, then only we'll be able to project ourselves to the world. Then only we will be able to take a perfect selfie. I vividly remember Sir saying how we are nothing but stardust. We are very much the component of the universe, and how special we are. We carry the memories and knowledge of our ancestors with us through our DNA. Sir also told us how our environment can hugely impact our behavior. And so we need to be conscious of our physical and emotional reality because we are manipulated very easily. We know the term called artificial intelligence, but Sir also told us about a term called artificial stupidity and told us how to be conscious and not to be an artificially stupid person. I think I can positively say that it was a successful webinar and we all will be taking the knowledge and values on our journeys ahead. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Once
Anshika.
again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. So I take leave, Sakwe?
Yes.
Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We
I'll get in touch with you.
Feel free, you can mail me the questions. I do not vouch that I'll respond immediately, but as and when I get time, I'll get back with the answers.
Yes, sir.
yeah.
That would be really great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
so
sir.
much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So the research presentation and sound of slogans are the two upcoming events in the session that are going to be followed hereafter. For research presentations, we have two eminent judges, Professor Deepa Hirani, Associate Professor, Department of Microbiology, Elphinstone College, and Mr. Ashutosh Mulek. He, as a visiting faculty, has been teaching instrumentation and computational neurobiology subjects at many other colleges such as Xavier's, Sophia's, and Center of Excellences in Basic Sciences. Currently, he works at Somaya Center for Experimental Learning, where he is involved in curating courses that allow students to learn through experience. They would be judging the event, and the winner of the event would be facilitated with certificates and 1 year subscription of Discovery Plus. The runner-ups would be awarded with certificates and a month of Discovery Plus. And the second runner-up will be awarded with certificates.
Next up, we have Sound of Slogan event. So the participants will be given 5 images. They will have to give the slogan for the image of their choice. The event will be judged by Professor Dr. Kagwade and Professor Dr. Vilas Padhyay of Elphinstone College, Mumbai. And the winner of the event will be awarded with certificates and 1 month subscription of Spotify. The runner-ups will be facilitated with certificates. Those who have missed out and would like to register for the event, please follow the link sent on WhatsApp and Telegram groups, and the same will be available in the YouTube description box. The event will start by 1, so we make sure you're on race on time.
Vaibhavi, unmute yourself. Vaibhavi, unmute yourself.
Okay, so now as we have reached the end of day one, it's not the end. We will be back again with yet another amazing talk by Mr. Santosh Segre. He will be sharing his view on contemporary advance in generic medicines in light of employment and business opportunities, and some more events in case you have missed out. Would like to register on the talk? Please follow the send link sent in the WhatsApp and Telegram groups, and the same will be available in the YouTube description box. So, on this note, we end today's session. See you all tomorrow at the same time.